From President Biden's recent legislative victories to the overwhelming victory for abortion rights in Kansas and the FBI's search of Mar-a-Lago, August so far has been full of surprises. And with some 90 days to go before the November midterm elections, it's not clear if such events will influence how Americans cast their votes this fall. Senator Tim Scott, Republican from South Carolina, is up for re-election in November. His new book, America, A Redemption Story, is out this week, and he joins me now. Senator Scott, congratulations on the book and welcome to the NewsHour. Thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am. It's good to be with you.
So I want to ask you about the book, but
Yes,
I
ma'am.
also want to ask you just a couple of questions about former President Trump. He's very much in the news, this search by the FBI
Yes,
of his
ma'am.
home in Palm Beach. Your comments, among other things, you said, let's see how the facts play out. Let the facts play out. I've been looking at social media, and some supporters of the former president are saying you should be more aggressively supporting him. What are you saying to them?
Well, I do think that my comments are really important. Number one, I was saying to my friends on the other side of the aisle, as opposed to rushing to judgment as they did in the Russia collusion episode, be patient. I would say to the rest of the country, we should be alarmed at the way that the Department of Justice and the FBI have gone after someone. This is unprecedented. It is shocking and quite surprising.
And we're waiting to see what happens. We are told that the Trump attorneys have a list of what was taken out of the Mar-a-Lago estate, but we haven't seen that yet. The other thing I want to ask you about is former President Trump today appearing before the New York State Attorney General, answering questions about his real estate dealings. He spent hours there, and he said afterwards he didn't answer any questions, invoked the Fifth. Should he have answered those questions?
If I were his attorney, I would probably tell him not to say a word to anyone from the Department of Justice anytime soon. I think he's protecting himself, and frankly, if I were in his seat or his lawyers, I would be very concerned about getting a fair shake from this Department of Justice.
Well, let's turn to your book.
Yes, ma'am.
The title, as we said, it's America, A Redemption Story, Choosing Hope, Creating Unity. It's your story, but it's also the story of others. Why did you want to say that what you're saying in this book right now?
I think our country faces polarization and skepticism about whether or not America works together. I wanted to be emphatic about the fact that I believe that we've been evolving in the right direction, that in my life, much like America's, we've had challenges. We've faced our original sin of racism. We had a civil war to solve that issue. We're continuing to working on it. My personal life, my 8th grade year, I was facing a race riot at the high school. 4 years later, I'm elected the student government president. The one thing about America is that we're the solution. Sometimes it's hard to get there, but we always arrive at the right place. I'm very confident that working together, we can get things done.
Your call for America to work together seems to be one of the lone voices at a time of great division in this country. Do you think people are ready to hear that message, and especially in the Republican Party? I
certainly hope so. I believe that division and polarization is not a Republican thing or a Democrat thing, it's a human thing. So my thought is, in my book, America, A Redemption Story, I talk about how good people of good intention, our good conscience, came together and helped me form a foundation, how to think for myself as opposed to what to think. In today's environment, it feels like people are being indoctrinated as opposed to saying, think for yourself, come to your own conclusions, wait patiently for all the information, and then make a decision.
And how do you think that's being received? I mean, I know you're talking to certainly your fellow Republican senators and other members of Congress.
I'm on both sides of the aisle. I do believe that today you look at some of the polarization that we have around the country today, it's not because of Republicans as much as it is about the administration's inability to be the great uniter that he campaigned on, President Biden. We have a big responsibility of bringing this country together. I believe we can get it done. It will take both sides of the aisle, but more importantly, it will take individuals embracing the concept that America's better together, leaning into opportunities. I write about it in my book about some of the people that came together. I had a wonderful mentor and a great orthodontist who changed my smile and my self-esteem permanently. And I thank God for people who had the opportunity, and they did because they They wanted to.
You have been, you created a political committee called the Opportunity, I think it's
Yes,
called
ma'am.
the Opportunity Zone.
Yes, ma'am. Opportunity Matters Fund. Yes,
Opportunity
ma'am.
Matters. And you're paying for ads, supporting your fellow Republicans
I am,
running
yes, ma'am.
around the country. We looked at a number of them, including one in Wisconsin for Senator Ron Johnson. And I listened to it today, and I noticed you said we need new leadership in Washington. Of course, Senator Johnson served 12 years. He's running for a third term. So how do you see that?
Yeah, so easily. One of the things that Ron John brings to the table is he's a small business owner. Here's a person who understands how to sign the front of the paycheck and not just the back of the paycheck. Washington has lots of lawyers, but not a lot of business people. So I feel like having someone like him is the new brand of leadership that is so important for those of us who understand how to run a business, hiring people, and the red tape or the headwinds that comes from the government.
And I'm asking because he has served 2 terms.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. The new brand of leadership.
He'd be serving for another 6. You are also sending out requests for people to donate to your campaign, and we looked at some of what you're asking for. And you, among other things, you say Democrats want abortions at 52 weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
We know the normal human
Of course.
term for an abortion. For
weeks.
pregnancy is 40 weeks.
Of course.
52 weeks is a whole year. So I'm curious, which Democrats are calling for 52 weeks?
Well, what we were talking about was Governor Northam's comments about infanticide, that literally up to the day of birth, one can be aborted. I think that is unconscionable. Frankly, there are 7 countries on earth that allow for late-term abortions in the way that we do in this country. And so we were trying to use a hyperbolic approach to bring more attention to the fact that there are late-term abortions, as well as people in the governing world that seems to think or believe that you could have an abortion up until the day of birth.
But you're not saying that Democrats want a baby. When you say infanticide, I mean, it sounds like you're saying Democrats want babies to die after their...
I'm not suggesting that all of the Democrats want anything. I'm suggesting that Governor Northam made comments that were consistent with the latest term of abortions happening in the latest part of the pregnancy.
But you're not saying that's what most Democrats
Oh,
want.
of course not. No, we would never whitewash everyone into the same category.
And finally, Senator, you've commented on this, but there is a paragraph in your book on the copyright page talking about you're running for president, that
Yes,
this is
ma'am.
a statement that prepares you to run for president.
Yes.
How seriously are you thinking about that?
Well, Chapter 5, I do talk about becoming president of my student government, and certainly my publishers were ambitious in thinking that there was a presidential election this year. I think they were way off there, and fortunately, they issued an apology for making such a drastic mistake. My goal is a very simple goal. That's running for re-election to continue to serve the great people of South Carolina. And while I find it humorous that I have a chapter about being president of my student government and my publishers had a comment that I did not approve, the most important thing to focus on is what's now.
But it's something you're open to in the future.
You never know what's going to happen, but I certainly am open to being re-elected.
All right. Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, the book is America, a Redemption Story. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Good to be with you.